3. Excited about this one. This is definitely one that's going to require some rewinds and stuff like that. So we're going to go long tonight for sure. We still have to talk about LEC. All right. Load it in, baby. We got this. So, double ban on SKT's jungle pool is very interesting here. Yes, Khan could play Aatrox, but I think the read was it was a jungle ban from Griffin. So that's already intriguing. Thankfully, it means less chance of Urgot as well, which I'm happy to see. Galio Vlad, so Vlad bot lane ban, Galio flex ban, and the Olaf ban is an intriguing one on the blue side. I'm guessing that after the Lee Sin ban, I think Griffin put out a Lee Sin ban, and Olaf was probably their most likely champion to go to because Tarzan hasn't shown a lot of Rek'Sai priority. And Olaf would be the obvious tempo jungler to take. And by tempo jungler, I mean where if you pick strong lanes and can jungle aggressively and empowering Tarzan to invade and push up and having Chovy play with him, and Tarzan being a strong foil to Chovy's leads has been such a big way that Griffin found leads. I actually like the Olaf ban in view of the Lee Sin ban, because remember there wasn't a Lee Sin ban in game number 1. That was something they left open. The LeBlanc ban does increase the Zoe priority, but when you choose Aatrox here without banning Jace, you know SKT are going to first pick Jace. So let's see if Griffin show... Let's try to relive why Griffin were willing to leave open Jace. It's Khan's Jace. Jace is the first pick champion on this patch. So the why of it is very intriguing to think about. The Jace was always going to come in here, obviously. Now, it's Jace or Zoe as a first pick, and I think some teams are skipping Zoe first pick, so I think Jace was the very obvious one. So what are Griffin's 2 champions here? I don't fully recall what they are. I'm guessing it was Kalista Zoe in the first round. Now, Galio's not up, so you don't care as much about losing out on Galio, and the other support options are kind of whatever. Like, they don't want to pick Alistar early. They want to pick Alistar a little bit later in the draft. They don't want to blind pick it, and it ended up being Kalista Aurelia, so it ended up being a really early Aurelia. They know Lissandra is up, and Faker didn't have the best time dealing with that with the Lissandra, so maybe they just feel like the fact that Aurelia can have a safe side laning matchup against most of Faker's effective champion pool, but also Jason the side lane. There's certain item break points where Aurelia wins. It seems like a reach, right, going this early for Aurelia, but you don't need to take the support. The jungle's been deprioritized to the point where they feel like they can hold on to it. They give up full Lucian Braum in the first round, but I think Griffin are okay with this because they get another free Alistar lock-in, so it seems like their win is the Aurelia with the ability to potentially stack more bans. And important point, most Korean teams will not take, will take their duo lane in this first round. We don't see a lot of second round AD carry supports, and SKT, it made a lot of sense for them to go Lucian Braum here. So that means that you're expecting further bans to be available into the jungle pool if you want it, to make the jungle pool even smaller for Clid, to not have what he wants. And also you can just double ban down champions that work into Aurelia. So this is going to ban the Lissandra here and make it even more tricky for Faker to find a lane, with also the full knowledge that they'll be able to flex it into top lane in certain matchups as well for Chovy. So I like the approach the draft Griffin have taken here. I don't feel like they've given up much outside of very early game Jace trades, and I feel like they've been the ones to set the tempo on the red side because they anticipated the duo of picks and thus knew they would get the counter pick Alistar, or the safe Alistar pick rather than the blind Alistar pick. Because mentioned it during game 2, we're going to have new viewers joining. In Korea, the blind Alistar choice is not being seen with any reliability. It's much more going to be later Alistars. So here's an interesting quandary. Your options are to blind pick a top laner or blind pick your jungler. And you learn what that means for the final pick from here. So I say blind pick. It's almost certainly Jace top and the Aurelia mid lane. So because of that, it is an answering pick. And the moment you don't take jungle here, it firms the lane assignments and it tells you there's probably going to be an interesting jungle choice. So when it comes to champions that can survive Jace, regions have a lot of individual priorities. In the past, Gragas has been tried by Khan. Seems to be a Khan special only. We've seen Ornn tried. Ornn and Sion can try to live through, but they don't really do what it says on the tin as much anymore. So Griffin stick with the last pick on the jungle, and they can just take Yorick. And Yorick here, you're pretty confident it's going to be Khan top lane. It's not going to be a Fiora this game. And if it ends up being Jace mid lane versus Aurelia, it doesn't do a lot. So I think in this point you're fine. So Yorick blind is probably the safest, or Yorick versus Jace, I should say, is probably the safest choice to give some lane priority and some push pressure. And now there's a chance that a game reaches a point where Jace can't contend with Aurelia or Yorick, because Aurelia and Yorick can both run away with Jace lanes. Like Jace, there's no guarantee that Jace will be able to 1v1 these champions if set behind. It's very likely that he won't be. And SKT just go pure team fight with the last part of their draft. Now, it's a very strong 4-1. Like, if Jace gets ahead, obviously he can run away with this game, and then Azir can wave clear in the mid lane. They have strong engage on this side, but it kind of came across as bold, right? You don't know what the enemy jungler is, and you're blind picking Zac, so they're putting his effective champion pool on something pretty defensive. Like Rek'Sai, for example, here would be aggressive, but you could understand that maybe Zac would get away with clearing. They actually pulled the trigger on the Evelyn. So when they were going for their first pick on the red side, I suggested that Eve would be one of the reasons to keep for a last pick. They pulled the trigger here. Very interesting interview with Ashley Kong, who may or may not be in chat right now. Suggests that the reason that this happened was that Tarzan's call was the enemy team was short-ranged, and thus I felt like it would be a good pick. Now, I think his exact language here is interesting to think about. Obviously, Lucian Braum fall into short range. Azir Jace is short range. I'm not really sure what point he's trying to... Maybe he means that the threat range outside of Zac is predictable. But you kind of see the Evelyn here, because Evelyn can be the combo that breaks the back of SKT. Like Evelyn plus Yorick, Evelyn plus Aurelia especially. Like if Aurelia's in the side lane against Jace and Eve comes around, a lot of kill pressure there. If she can sneak in a long lane, there's a lot of kill pressure there. The Evelyn seems pretty bold. They need magic damage. The Elise was banned. So it does fit the same like for like, where they don't have a single damage profile for Zac and Braum just to outscale you with a front line here, and Zonia's to do all the work. But Evelyn here is such a intricate pick. It's a really intricate pick here that has quite a lot of risk to it, but definitely a hype one, right? Second game on the Evelyn. It's not a... They're not trying to flex with a pick like this. Evelyn, level 6 onwards, has pretty incredible burst damage, as of course we see time and time again in this game. But, you know, early clear falls pretty low in the jungle. Doesn't have invisibility to level 6, and can't really punish Zac. You can't double scuttle Zac with this jungler. So if you're SKT, you see the Eve. Now that's annoying, but we should be able to get away with Zac, you know? And then you say Zac and Azir in a team fight, Lucian Braum in terms of lane power. We're going to get to a point where we can fight with these champs as some Azir buffs, so you get that extra 20% attack speed in this game. I said it wrong on cast, and I corrected myself in the following series, but base attack speed is the important thing to talk about here. The extra attack speed scaling per level that doubled from 1.5 to 3% doesn't count as base attack speed, even though it's not stats that you have to pay for, even though in my mind it still fits the definition of base. It's still counted as bonus attack speed. So basically you have an extra 20% attack speed at level 18, but you don't have the naturals to scaling on the base attack speed of the more per level you get. So just something that doesn't mean something to everyone, but wanted to correct that because I don't want to give misinformation out there. Zac able to get a scuttle. Always the dream. Zach almost always goes red buff into Krugs, into Raptors, into then thinking about topside scuttle. But because it's an Evelyn matchup, you're able to go red Wolves into the scuttle, which is a really good feel because Zach wants to go against a camp that has 2 or 3 targets, not a solo camp, because you go Talisman and because you have the ability to knock the heads together and proc your W and AoE. You're much better at AoE camps than you are with single target camps. So this actually ends up being a really nice path for Clid, where if it ends up with a scuttle, ends up being traded. There's a chance he's going to steal Krugs here. I think he'd be super happy to see Krugs, but the Krugs had already been claimed. So they're going to attempt the turret dive, which ends up being one of the most fun things to discuss. I had a really good fun discussing this on cast, so I won't have to go as in-depth because I've already said a lot of my piece about this. This is a very transparent dive. Compare this dive. Watch the dive here. I assume this is visual bug. Let's find out. This could be visual bug, but I think he's out of vision range anyway. Let's see how long it takes for him to fully show what's happening. Khan is slow stacking the wave. You're expecting a dive. Watch Clid's approach here, because do notice that they take a long time to pull the trigger on this. Compare this to how Elise went straight through the brush and made the kill in game number 1. This one is going to take a lot longer. It's based on the crash of minions. They're pretty sure Eve is bot side, and they need everything, and I mean everything, to pull off the dive. And that's why, as I mentioned, Eve gets a second Krug camp for this. Yes, you get a kill, but of course, with lower death timers in the early game, the TP is going to get you there without missing a lot of minions. You're level 4, and the break-even point was, I think, level 8 or something. So you knew Eve was going to get more from this. And the question is it worth it? And as I mentioned on the cast, you don't know till the end. It's not fair to fully decide that here. But just how much they were required to take and how close it came up, and there could still have been a death. The minions almost trained down Clid, who lives on, I want to say, 30 health. As I was watching it, when I put it out there, I'm like, it's probably not worth it. But I think at the moment, that's a snap judgment of mine. It's just a personal bias. I think it's something that could have been played to. It means that Jace can keep pushing aggressively, and it means that Yorick's going to take longer to turn on in terms of the 1v1. But Eve also gets a free level 6, and that's scary. Very little vision on the map. You notice there's no Rek'Sais in this game, or Lee Sins, or early skirmishing junglers, because they're more focused on their own camps, and no one's feeling the priority to get out of lane. So 6 minutes the map is dark outside of a single ward around the honey fruit on the top of the game for SKT, which is just different. A very different look, and obviously these players are pretty tired at this point coming into it, just like we are if you've been here for the whole VOD review stream. And you see already, Tarzan's feeling strong enough to come in, contest the Raptors, feeling strong enough to invade. Through all of this, because, let's talk about why this happens. So, while everything was happening topside, remember that Eve took Krugs. So she'll know Krug respawn timer. They also have had priority bot lane because the duo of Lucian Braum again has had to play defensively. So this invade on a back timing from the Azir is really good. Chovy TP's back into the lane, so they have a TP advantage. This is how you use what happened topside. And remember, we were like, okay, you killed Yorick. How can you return to it and get something? The answer is that as of 7 minutes, they haven't done it. Meanwhile, Griffin got a much smaller win, an extra camp, a Krug camp onto Tarzan. But earlier than we can see a return onto Yorick Mari or around Jace, we already see an invasion that gets Raptors that also is able to keep tabs onto Clid and slow him down. They get a 2-level lead in the jungle eventually here. They can't steal away the Krugs, but it's an invasion timing around the CS advantage that Lucian Braum has had to give up to the Kalista lane, and also the Evelyn, who keeps a 5-camp lead at 7 minutes. And now, smartly, Lehens gets back timing, it's the Moby Boot back timing, and Khan doesn't have access to the flash. So they even get an advantage on where SKT was set up to succeed. Around the Jace lane that had a huge item lead. Look at Yorick, he had only the Corrupting Potion and a Doran Shield. Goes straight top lane from the back timer, and punishes there as well. So just to summarize, the super bold turret dive that took all summoners, got a kill, couldn't really chase away any CS apart from the ones that had already been lost in respect. And Griffin got Krugs, a CS lead bot lane in a tricky lane, and an invasion, and a better back timing for Lehens, because again, Teddy and Smarter were being pushed in for Lehens to go top side. So it's just another one of those and moments where grammar goes out the window and you know that one team got a lot and the other team got something that seems pivotal, right? In solo queue, they got the kill. They got the person died, but we can see that it just wasn't worth it after all in that particular way. And much the same that the Trader Flashes in the TSM versus C9 series in our last VOD review didn't seem worth it. So that means that Griffin have 1,000 gold lead in this game. That's around a Jace lane, which might have a lead, but this just feels like it. If you have Lucian, Braum, Jace on your team, you already sit there being like, man, 15 minutes in, we're going to have 1,500 gold lead at least. But top lane's 300 gold ahead, bot lane's 100 gold down. The jungle is huge disadvantage. And do moments like this happen? Can Sword chase down Khan on Jace, if not for him dying, if not for Summoners being in a weird spot earlier? Seeing the play happen, and you pause this play, and you say, okay, control ward in the river, so you know that if Evelyn's coming, it's through the lane. They know Krugs is up. It's actually pinged out by, you would assume, Evelyn here, saying, yep, he's taking Krugs. He could be there for the bot lane play. This is actually really smart by Clid. He's here for a counter gank. The reason why it's counter gank time is the lane is in a really awkward spot. If you see where Viper is, it's the sort of spot where you can freeze the wave, and then Lucian Braum are very prone to be frozen on. It's something that changed with the Lucian changes. You can't just ult the wave forward with your culling anymore. You don't do as much damage to minions. So as your Lucian Braum, you want to be fighting on your terms. And if you have the lane in that spot in a reverse matchup, you're like, man, if you hit the win just by it, you can all in with the Braum passive. But from behind, when it's reversed onto you, you're in Fate's Call range, you're in Alistair about Pulverize range, and of course the lane gank from Evelyn is a possibility. So Clid is in the right spot. He makes a very smart read here. If you're not here for the counter gank, it's pretty much a straight up mistake, because you should be communicating with your lanes where the lane state is, and this is the lane that you want to engage on if you're the Evelyn. Mid lane's too short, and Faker has his summoners up, and Yorick doesn't have a lot of gank assist in the early game. So because of that, Clid goes the right place, but he's paying the sins of the turret dive. He's 2 levels under as this play happens, level 6 to level 8. So even though he comes in, it's after a kill is already registered. They chase on for more, but a matching teleport comes in, and they end up losing more here. So this is just a reality. Clid's in the right spot, but actually, maybe you have to bail out, right? It's once again Griffin playing. They just know where their bread is buttered. They play around the lane state in the bot side, and also their super fed jungler. 3 assists come here. They lose the Cloud Drake as well as the turret plates roll down. Lucian Braum, man, is not finding the turret plates this series. The amount of turret plates that Mata and Teddy have been disadvantaged in Kalista Alistair lanes 2 games in a row is pretty insane to see. And they just chase in. They just take the closest target. It's not that interesting to replay this, so I'm not going to go through a breakdown. The moment you commit to TPs, that's all you can do. Both their teleports are pretty poor, but Baby Cage is probably better than Khan when it's a reactive teleport. And they lost the Drake as well, so this is pretty big advantages. Interesting item build from Chovy. You'll notice he's gone for full Negatron, which tells you he's going Wit's End. You match Azir in a side lane better with this build, and it means Evelyn does more damage, but it does delay the point at which you can hit Khan on the side lane. I guess if you're a Wit's End ahead, it doesn't matter that you don't have armor, but he's very much building for an extended laning phase against Azir, where he does relevant trade damage and doesn't die, and that's why he gets Wit's End Mercs as his back. You wonder if it would have been worth it to send Jace mid lane, but I don't think Jace mid lane does much. I'm not a huge fan of it. I saw Pyrion playing it in the LEC. And Tarzan certainly already does a lot. Other advantage of this build, and maybe it plays to something we discussed during the previous point, as I'll pause here, is about to get some action. Remember that from our looking over on Games of Legends and trying to think about how Griffin play, Griffin like to play through their jungler via the mid laner. By that I mean sometimes you're ganking mid, but more often than not, it's Tarzan knows where to be on the map because of his map read, and Chovy's there with a gold lead because of his strong mechanics and just some early kind of vision quirks to back him up. If Tarzan and Chovy are together, Chovy is always going to get at least 3 stacks of the wit's end off, and Tarzan's already ahead. So right now, no 2v2 can match Tarzan and Chovy. They are unbelievably strong as a duo with a synergy of wit's end and the flat shred and just how much damage Elise already has. Alright, let's play this, watch this all play out. This one does deserve the time here. So, Rift Herald started. A lot of this is going to be minimap talk, so it's not so much about the fast action here, guys, but we'll play it out. This play starts with finally Teddy and Mata under the enemy turret. You know, my queen for a day. You know, like they've been desperate to push up. They actually get the priority there. They know they're on Rift Herald. This one's not going to be obfuscated. Chovy's sitting on the control there. Azir and Zac can obviously come in, but they have a deep ward down for Elastic Slingshot if it's 5 points to come and contest, and Clear only has 4 points in it. But they're walking up, and they will have 5 members there, and for sure, Viper says, I'm not going to be able to get there. So the big thing that happens here is actually Sword finds a kill that shouldn't have happened. Khan is in a vantage point to poke. Is he on any vision? Let's find out. So Khan enters this pretty low health, right? He took that bad trade earlier. Control Ward doesn't spot him here, but obviously he's in a poke position. This should be a spot for him to just poke around the Rift Herald, but he misses first, and Morning Mist ends up killing him. Because when Morning Mist comes in, Sword is confident in the tag, no flash on the enemy, and even Blue Buff gets in on the action there. So they get a bonus kill from Sword in this play, and it ends up being important, because remember, this should have been a 5v4. They don't get a solo kill, and SKT rotate first. So in a 5v4, it becomes a 4v4. And Lehen's being the one that comes in late, he just wastes time. You want to be fighting near the Rift Herald, right, to contest the health bar, but Griffin kite it up. Watch this point here. The call is at 1300. Sword's off doing his own thing, but watch the call here. You notice them kite it upwards as Lehen says, guys, I have ultimate. It'll be fine. So with all the leashing that's happening here, Clid comes to join in to try to get that kill on the bottom side after his top laner has gone down. And Lehen's is so smart at knowing what his role is. If they're moving towards him, Fate's Call can come through. And the Callista that only started walking up. Let's watch when she started walking up. Callista starts walking up as Morning Mist tags Khan. That's when Callista leaves lane. She really wanted those minions pushing in. Ends up being there in time. Call right now is Lehen's saying, I'm coming in looking like a donkey, or a cow in this case, and just stopping Teddy from getting anywhere near. Yes, he has to flash, but flash ult gets them a Rift Herald as they already got a kill. So this is just really good understanding of a pretty high tension moment in the game. The all-in bonus from the Yorick kind of skews it, because now you're like, oh, SKT made a mistake, but yes, but it still would have been perfectly played if Yorick and Khan had just kind of been tussling with no kill being gotten. They understood the extra summoners being down, and the fact that Callista was able to outperform Illusion in that fight is showing you that their map players is pretty immaculate here. Like, this was really well conceived from Griffin in a spot that I think a lot of teams could have tripped up on. The observers have been caught in replays too much in the last week. If you remember, the 200 IQ observations have been a couple of 20 IQ ones where we missed out on action. So there was so much I like, no, we'll see the Rift Herald. And this is the one time you probably could have skipped it. So we play out here, and now you wonder, at this point, with 3 kills on Yorick, how do SKT win in the mid game? In the late game, I think they outperform in terms of damage. The Azir can be so strong in the 4, but we thought this game is SKT 4-1 finding their leads. But the 1 is going to be slow. Like, there's no CS lead over Yorick. Yorick's only now hitting his spike. He's going to go back and get Trinity Force at 15 minutes. this lane is still good for Jace, but he's not going to be actually like punching the damage once we hit about 25 minutes. So the Jace being this far behind, and that being something that Griffin was able to do, given how strong the 4 is of SKT, where Azir, Braum, Zac can just kind of allow Teddy to walk up, or with the Azir walk up and pretty safely get turret damage, was kind of what Griffin was scared of, because the problem is that then they have to either fully engage or have no wave clear. Like it's Kalista and Aurelia, and if you're walking up to get Ren damage onto minions, then you're going to take Azir Sand Soldier poke, Chovy has to all in, or they have to play 3 lanes. And right now you don't really want to play 3 lanes as Griffin, mostly because Chovy's not ready to hit Jace in a side lane. You can't always get the lane assignment you want. So just an interesting point in the game to think about as we push forward, but pretty big to have Jace shut down to the degree that he has. Not quite going to be Trinity Force, instead the about 300 gold short there. Chovy's really happy to just keep laning against Azir for now. She can lane against Azir till she got Trinity Force, she would take it. How are we doing, chat? We having fun? There's definitely some slower moments in the early part of this game before it all goes crazy. SKT fans, no, understandable. Glad we're enjoying ourselves. Zoom in here, not smart for them. As the lane assignment changed, there wasn't really any way for them to contest. They lost map control bot side, and we get the donkey on sword that we should talk about, because it does change how this map is looking. Sword knows there's no way for the enemy to be bot side, and just kind of walks up in a weird spot. It's nicely executed by Clid. I want to actually give the benefit to SKT on execution here. Bounces him out of the baby cage, just to stop that from being the reason they don't pick up a kill. So it is a cross-map kill that bails Jace out a little bit. Let's see what the map state is for this to happen in the mid lane. Eve was spotted on vision, top side. Doesn't have Moby boots, but of course is a really fast champion. She starts coming down, and Lehens engages as Tarzan is there. So Teddy would have known there was a chance they were around, but this is all about vision contests, so ends up being a couple of summoners for being too bold from SKT. Just Evelyn things where you have to respect that she could be anywhere on the map at all times. Speaking of Evelyn, and this is before Evelyn really gets strong. I think this was actually a little bit obvious. So obviously Faker knows he could be there, but the moment that Lehens approaches the play this way, like, he has to be there, right? But it's just a good ward down from Faker, so I think he plays that well, and they still get the objective, so it doesn't matter on the side of Griffin. But I think the Hex Flash kind of did its job, but it told them there was a ward there, but that ward didn't tell them Evelyn there. So, you know, that's why I'm a bit of a dramatic push and pull about how I feel about that exactly. Scariest point for me in an Evelyn game is when the outer turrets go down, because then Evelyn just has so many different ways to approach from, and you know you're in a gold disadvantage this game, so then you're putting control wards in very conspicuous places that either get cleared out or means that certain other things go missing because you can only have 5 control wards out at once. So definitely in a really close to a pretty tumultuous time in the game with only 1 turret down. And 1 turret isn't a true lead against Azir, because Azir can just go to that lane and put down a Sand Soldier, or they can just play around it. But for now, no one is going. You'll notice Lucian isn't interested in picking out minions. Even Jace is not super confident in picking out minions super far down until he sees Evelyn, and they can ping him out. So they're definitely watching the minimap to see Evelyn top side, so that lets them know that Jace can take 1 extra minion wave. But the 1 extra minion wave conundrum against specifically Evelyn is kind of one of the scariest in the game. Like, this Evelyn's pretty far ahead. She's most of the way towards a Lich Bane as a first true item. She's in a really powerful point. They don't have any magic resist in their builds yet to really speak of. So with only a No Magic Mantle and the Aegis on the Braum. Not many people can walk up. Jace can't walk up, and Azir can't walk up yet with the threat of Evelynn. And then you just have to evaluate moves like this and say, was Jace too far up? Khan honestly, like, takes this pretty defensive. He doesn't even instantly start the Krugs for the chance of there being someone close. He waits even longer. The only mistake you could say is that he kites towards the brush. If at this point your read is Evelynn could be here, then you don't kite towards the brush. It doesn't feel good to stay near the Yorick because you might be fishing for a morning mist, but it's, you know, you can't really blame him for that. Like, that's really hard and tricky lane assignment in order to work out how to approach it. But he goes down, and it's just fed Evelynn things where life becomes so much harder to play. Like, it's why no one wants an Eve meta unless you've got the team with the Eve player, because the spots where you can stand safely against Evelynn, even in pro play, as we can see in a game like this, are pretty minimal. It's pretty tricky in order to actually approach that thing at that point. Yeah, and then Tarzan just does unbelievable damage, as we can see. Bot side is Griffin's, and as SKT you say, at least it's not the Baron side. That's really all you can hope is, for now at least, you want Evelynn to be far away from the Baron. Otherwise, in similar Baron plays, you'll be losing things. So you're getting the low roll Drakes here if you're SKT. If you're Griffin, sorry. So SKT feeling good about this double Cloud. Actually ends up being important they had double Cloud, right? Cloud Drake ends up being relevant in the backdoor, but it actually is one of those things at this point where working out how things go is a hindsight thing. Like, if it's double Infernal, double Mountain, maybe the game goes out differently. So Evelynn hasn't been seen in a long time. Could be anywhere. Again, why Evelynn sucks as a champion to play against. Faker sweeps over, starts to wave clear. Now, no one's placed vision in this area for a long time, so Faker doesn't know anything about the area, but it's the most defensive way he can leave this lane. And what do they know? They know that Hens is around mid lane. They know Kallista's around mid lane as well. I'm trying to think what Faker's thought is on how Griffin's trying to play out this moment. Because there's very low chance that he dies here. I don't think this is too bold a way to go, but obviously if you want to be ultra safe, you go all the way around. And he probably gets chased if he goes all the way around. Look at this burst damage. This is Lich Bane, 1-0 and 3, 167 CS, 22 minutes. Tarzan puts down a control ward. Chat says maybe he thought he could 1v1 Evelynn. He for sure doesn't think that. He thinks maybe he can disengage Evelynn with Flash and Barrier. And he also doesn't know Evelynn is there. Like, he doesn't have the map hacks we do. They haven't got... Like, think about the last time there was a position on Evelynn. Let's see the last time Evelynn was in vision. So the last time Evelynn was in vision was 21:30 when she took the Drake. 21:30, 21:30, 21:30, 21:30, 21:30. This is 1 minute, 20 seconds later. No way to know where Evelynn is. Again, the reason why Evelynn's so hard to play against in pro, if you can pull it off, is they don't have vision control because they've fallen behind against Evelynn, so Evelynn's burst does more damage. But when you fall behind, you can't put down bold control wards to see Evelynn coming. So it's a double whammy, right? Like, you lose out on the fact that the enemy jungler is fed, and you lose out on the fact that you can't actually know where he is. That's why Evelynn's strong. Full health with barrier. This is the fed Evelynn that wins every solo game against me. There's also a reality of the fact that Faker hasn't been able to find magic resist into the build yet. That's not incorrect. Remember that if you go ultra safe and walk around, you shouldn't be hit by an Evelynn, but he went mostly safe and got blown up. Yeah, the viewers are noticing this, but we'll point it out for them as well. But remember how Allure works, the W of Evelynn. It's a damage amp, but you have to fully charm it to get the full damage. That was, yep. That was not full of lore. It's just a kill. So, that's Evelyn as a champion. It's why Evelyn has a place in pro play, is compared to the old Evelyn. Is yes, you should get ultra dunked early, but Zack's not going to dunk you. And when it's Jace top lane and not a tank, like you think of it as a tank top lane, then Jace doesn't, then you don't normally have damage as Evelyn to get those kills. But you can easily solo Jace, Azir, Lucian. Lucian and Jace easy, Azir medium difficulty to high difficulty depending on how much, you know, he's fully on anticipating that you're there. But those guys are squishy, and Evelyn does lots of damage, like a lot. That was definitely more. I didn't appreciate it would be instant one shot through barrier, but Jesus. So SKT, we get out the replay. This is the game state where they start Baron. Now they don't have any forward vision. What do SKT have? They have no Drakes. They have good Baron damage from Azir. There's no way for Lucian to get there. Yorick has TP, so they know that's going to be short-lived. We had that terrible Misfits Baron, so let's understand why SKT starts Baron here. They're on a recall and someone says Baron, 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 Baron. Lehens instantly wards it. You wonder what the... I guess they're just testing it to see if they can get a teleport. So SKT want TP out of Yorick. They don't have someone who can match Yorick right now. Khan was... Why was Khan around? Let's pause it after this replay. Khan was topside already, so Khan ran topside. And so they had no lane assignment here, so they tried to get a TP out of Yorick, but I think it's pretty hard to bait this one. Showing a lot of safety here is... It's worth mentioning that Sword shows more safety than Faker does in how he plays out the defense there. He has less things to worry about, and he still full-on disengages on the top side. He gets a red buff out of it, so that part is nice. And Griffin loses the Baron control, so definitely not a Misfits Baron. Few on that one, but this is a point where Griffin shouldn't lose. Sword is monstrously strong in the stride lane and almost gets a solo inhibitor down. They have good pick and catch. They have some flexible lane assignments now, as now you feel better about having Aurelia in both lane matchups. You're getting control wards that SKT can't contest because the only person who can walk up to a control ward is Braum, a friend, or Zack as a champion and be willing to ult out. So this is where the game feels like Griffin's going to close it out pre-35 minutes. Now we know it doesn't go that way. We know there's a pretty big throw incoming. So we're going to have to understand that. But Yorick goes down bot. He pushes in. Neither side has any vision. Advantage the team that's winning with the Evelyn, which is Griffin. They don't have any idea where Evelyn is for minutes. You know, they can't ward camps, right? That's the way. Just ward her camps is the way to beat Evelyn. Well, they can't get close enough to the camps to ward them because they're too far behind. Yorick continues to push up. And again, it should be a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment for Griffin. Like, they're taking their time around the Baron vision contest because they have no threat of actually the Baron being started from the side of SKT. And they also, right now, are feeling like in the side lane they're getting a lot of their advantage. So things are really, really good for this side of Griffin right now. They're getting free Drakes. The next Drake will be free to be theirs as well. Azir's annoying to contest when you try to put down Pixel Brush control wards, but whatever, right? That's fine. I believe they saw Tarzan here. So let's see how this play starts. This ends up being the pivotal play. Tarzan sauntering around. I'm not 100% clear on the detection range when I'm not playing the champion. I'm going to assume he would have been spotted at 1 second, but at this point obviously is spotted and moves away. They have Aurelia coming from top, who's currently clearing out a ward. Alistair coming from the middle. So it's like a three-way flank from SKT looking for a pick, and they know Teddy's flash is down. So you know why Griffin makes this play. They're looking for the hard engage. They get the head by Pulverize. Azir's far away. It wasn't on vision, but is joining late. And they're super hard at the paint to pick up the kill. Now, here's something to consider. They dive straight in. Viper can't auto-attack who he wants to. The ult comes in. Teddy's at 200 health. Summoner spells. Teddy is out of the fight. He's got no health. He cannot do anything. Viper has both summoner spells. Chovy has his flash. Sword has his flash and teleport. They've gotten the AD carry out completely, and they didn't quite get the kill. The damage calculation here is kind of whatever. When it comes to Tarzan, he tries for the ult, doesn't get the kill. Bad luck. Chovy at the top side's 1v2 against Clit and Tarzan, so he's actually falling low on it. And Viper really goes in aggressively and dies. Watch this. He's full health. Watch where he takes damage from. Look at this point in the game. 27:02. Viper has every bit of his health, barring 90 health at the top. And Teddy has, you know, Ignite Tick Death. That's how low he is. Then Pierce comes in. What is... Where's the health gain from? I think it's Flash Locket from Mata. Let's watch this. Flash over at the Locket. Oh, man. The Locket there is so damn amazing. Look at this play. I didn't even see this in live, but the Mata Locket is god tier. And then watch Viper's health bar, because I'm watching the back. He actually gets full colored to death and 1-0 auto and is dead. You can feel hard done by his Viper, but he dies with his heal up, and they already had Teddy for sure out of the fight. So this is really, really greedy by Griffin. Not a word we usually use to complain about Griffin. Like, we've seen some greedy moments from SKT in this series, but Griffin is not normally greedy. They already for sure had the enemy AD carry out, and almost every other map state they won. Yorick pushing in the bot, Chovy pushing in the mid. Instead, they lose a Baron just from greed. They had already got the primary objective of make sure the enemy AD carry has no real way to contest Baron. I love the approach here. 3 directions, Chovy gets stalled. Oh, that was a god tier Locket. Man, Locket can be big. And then Lehens dies because of the aggression from Viper. I think Viper wouldn't have been fully like aware that he was full on tanking the culling. Really, really big play. And then the game changes so much, right? Because now, how did Griffin win? SKT had no access to Baron, so none of this was relevant. But we knew that SKT, without a Baron's kind of playing with 4 men and hoping Jace can push. Jace was behind, he can't push. Griffin wanted to play 3 lanes, and then Viper can mop up the CS with Alistair in the mid lane, and Evelyn's always threatening. And that's why 1-3-1 is so annoying, is Evelyn's kind of like a super Shen in a 1-3-1, right? If it's Shen support, you're always like, oh, but the side lane can win because they have Shen ult. What if you have 2000 damage burst range invisible champion, right? So it's all the ones are feeling so scared because you're behind and you don't have map control. But now, Evelyn has to kind of help with wave clear, kind of has to show her position just to stop Baron from just deleting all the turrets. He got no wave clear. Jovi's got no wave clear. Viper's got no wave clear. Sword is in a side lane and doesn't have great wave clear. They have no wave clear against Jace, Azir, and Lucian, and they can group with the Jace, which gets and subverts the bad side lane matchup. So this Baron ends up being just insanely valuable for SKT. The chance of them losing the game before they got Baron, I would have said was 85 to 95% in the next 10 minutes. And then really big individual mistake from Viper and just team decision, and I guess you have to call it overall because it ended up with multiple people throwing up. And then the game could just straight up been lost from this Baron. There's going to be a lot of standing gold from this Baron. There's always going to be a big Baron buff power play. It won't be free because Yorick Mori's a cool champion and deletes turrets, but they're getting stuff that was never possible. They've never visited these, but they just got their passport to leave their side of the map. That's how big the map control was on the side of Griffin previously. And now SKT's getting cool objectives. They're getting nice innings. 3 Cloud Drakes. It's definitely going somewhere, but Spirit Shojin is the build path here from Lucian. We talked about it in game, but Black Cleaver Spirit Shojin's very rarely both built at the same time, but it's full on. I'm gonna always be able to E, so you're never gonna be jump scared by a threat too much, and theoretically you can always engage, disengage people, and continue to brawl. It's a tankier build, but he wants to be able to never be caught in a cage, never be caught napping, always have his dash up to dash away from a cage or an Evelyn E or Alistair Headbutt Pulverize or the threat range of an Aurelia stun. So I actually don't mind this build. It means lower damage, but you got a Azir and Jace, right? So you're feeling like your damage can work here. Minimap here makes sense. You can't answer Yorick very cleanly without multiple members, and with multiple members you can siege onto a team with no wave clear. So you swap inhibitors. Now Griffin are looking for the interrupt here, just chasing as hard as they can as Lehans. But TP's up on Jace, so he's able to walk up, and of course you can't just delete turrets in his face. And SKT are able to outduel here. Another good moment for SKT. I think they play this one well. The turrets, they still get the 2 inhibitors, amusingly. I forget that point, but they get in, they get out. Naked Nexus, and we know that's going to be big, but you assume this is just going to be the end of the game, right? Now we have an interesting question to ask. We'll let this play out, and then we'll play it again. So, this point in the game, the decision is someone needs to go back to stop and help the Jace from the game ending. And that is the question we have to ask here is, should they have tried to finish? Could they have tried to finish, and how would it have gone? Now, there's a lot of different things to discuss, so let's focus on one thing. Let's talk about what happens if Lucian goes back and Azir stays. That's the one scenario we're going to talk about. Does the game end? So Azir goes back. He needs someone to help, clearly, as you can see. So Faker flies in. They get the kill. Now, at this point, let me tell you a secret. When it's this late into the game, and you know that the whole enemy team is dead, when they go into this camera angle, you're pretty sure that the game is going to end. And Tarzan is 22 seconds away from respawning. So this is where the eulogy for Griffin is there. The perfect season wasn't possible. So the two questions at this point is could these champions have ended? And could Azir have ended if Lucian went back? So there is a ability to push in here. The minions aren't going to hit the Nexus. This turret actually takes longer to kill than expected, and at 32:45, there's only 2 seconds for Tarzan to respawn, 4 seconds for Alistar. So my impression is no. Teddy has no mana, and Lehens can headbutt him away and then pulverize him. So at this point, I don't think they can finish with these two champions. If Zac recalls, he doesn't have enough threat, so they have to have either the Lucian or the Azir recall, and the Azir is the more reliable person to recall. Now, it could have just been in comms, the first person who called it out was Faker, and thus he recalled, but Azir has the ability to push Yorick away from the Nexus that Lucian doesn't. Lucian only brings damage, and he needed a bit of time to get some mana. So, let's look at the item timings. Remember that Azir is the god of killing turrets for a pretty specific reason. AP ratio to turrets is higher than ever. This is the items. So it's National's Tooth, Banshee Veil, Void Staff, and no death cap, but an Large Rod. So we're talking 350, 400 AP, and high attack speed. At this present point, you have no champion to procure lethal tempo on. The question of how much faster do you finish the game? Teddy, let's talk about when he actually gets into the ending part. So when he tries to end the game, he has no mana at all. And that means that he can't get passive procs to do this. So he's actually pretty damn slow. Teddy has a utility build based around kiting around. We already mentioned he had a movement build with his Spear Shojin. And he has no mana. So he's actually very slow at killing Barons. So I know I said that the first question of would Azir have done it? The question of would Lucian have done it? No. This is the correct back away. They cannot finish the game because Tarzan threat into Lehan's headbutt. They don't have enough damage to kill the Nexus. So that part there is correct. Let's look at Azir's state at this point. They win the fight, and this is Azir's recall timing. Azir has full mana. I assume he has presence of mind. Let's find out. Yeah. Azir has presence of mind. That's how you know he has presence of mind, because he gained all his mana back. So Azir actually had enough mana to use all of his abilities. So if Azir had stayed, he would have finished the game. I think Azir wins the game here because remember he has Emperor's Divide to disengage Evelynn, and Evelynn will be revealing himself. So the answer to that question is, based on if Azir is in base auto-attacking, Azir would have won the game. Azir has more turret threat than almost anyone. If you notice, there was a Demolish proc onto the Zac. So Zac Demolish plus Azir, you end the game. You either disengage Evelynn or you already finished the game before then. There was 20 seconds when he entered the base. So the answer there is yes, Azir would have ended the game. However, let's ask another question. What does this look like in the base? Let's, in our mind's eye, think about what this looks like in the base if it's a champion that doesn't have anything other than damage. Sword walks up. He is annoying that he has to deal with J. So 1 Q does roughly... So I like this Q. So the Q onto the Nexus does about a 1/6 of the Nexus's health, maybe a 1/7. Feels like more than an 1/8, right? At this point, Sword can't be killed. He still has Sterix. If you send Zac back, he has CC but no damage. I think he either ends the game or kills them both. And then someone else has to recall anyway. But the one thing you know for sure is that with Emperor's Divide, you're going to get him out there. So the question of how fast does Lucian kill them in the 1v2? The answer is maybe. Because if you watch it, without including any Azir threat, before Azir does anything, Sword is at 700 health. Watch for Azir's first bit of damage. I think watching this, we can say in hindsight, 100% if Lucian goes back, they win. Do we agree, chat? I think in hindsight, replaying it, 100%, Lucian goes back, they win. Question is, could Lucian have based as easily as Azir? We can watch the replay. Still fighting. Azir starts backing there. Viper's already in for the fight. How much recall had Faker gotten at this point? Let's see how much recall Faker gets by the time that 1 second, 1.5 seconds. Alright, so let's replay this. Let's assume Azir's not there yet. Azir's not there yet. Azir's not there yet. Azir's not there yet. Azir's not... That's Lucian, I guess I should say. Lucian's not there yet. He doesn't have culling. Lucian hasn't done any damage just yet. Lucian still hasn't damaged. Lucian does damage now. I think it doesn't change it. I think Lucian still is enough. Jace has actually been able to do more damage if you slow it down than we thought before Azir hit the model. And the displacement isn't important. So I think in hindsight, we're able to say, yes, that could have happened. So now it's worth... I feel like we can right now say, yes, you probably would have won the game if that had happened. But given what's already happened this game and Yorick's reputation, I think you can't send back Zac because it's not enough damage. And yes, in hindsight, we can look at it and say not a lot of damage is required. But I think sending back Zac is too risky. I think if you send back Zac here and lose, everyone laughs at you, right? If you send back Zac here and lose, everyone laughs at you. Just like the same as when we talk about the Flash Cocoon, right? Like, I think it's incorrect to send back Zac here. So when you consider Yorick as a champion and the fact that we've had a lot of Nexus backdoors, obviously after this game, given that it happens in this game, but before, you know why you chose Azir. Azir got first recall. Azir has a way to displace. There's just no way Azir doesn't kill Yorick. So there's no way you lose the game. The way I look at it is if Zac goes back and you lose the game, you feel like you made a mistake. If Lucian goes back and you lose the game, you feel a bit hard done by. If Azir goes back, you never lose the game. And there's a chance you straight up win the game because knowing how fast it is to kill just two Nexus turrets and the base because you don't have an inhibitor up there. This is you definitely don't lose the game move, and it's hard to say it's a game losing decision, right? We're just talking about the what ifs. So I think in general, as the play all goes, it's very hard to say anything other than, damn, I wish we sent down Lucian. Obviously, in the moment, both the Korean and English casters are talking about how Griffin's lost. They hadn't lost, Tarzan chases them away, and the game lives on. So, interesting. Yeah, just an insane passage of play in this one. Like, I think, you know, I think it's just so tricky to make an accurate decision here. And I think sending back Azir, you never lose. And it's third game of a series that you're so desperate to win. Oh my god, this visual bug. Look at this visual bug. We never talked about this part. Oh man. The visual bug there changes it completely. Don't worry guys, Tarzan didn't actually walk into the control ward vision there. So this is of course going to be the other fun thing to check. So, let's talk about this play. Let's watch it all in 0.75 times speed and think about the comms here. The game deciding moment. We'll pause straight out of the replay, out of the nicers, and thankfully it comes in just about early enough to truly understand it. Pause now. Baron is about to respawn. Griffin win a lot of fights, right? They may have thrown a fight, but they win a lot of fights. And so the fact that you don't know where Evelyn is means you extra want to get control wards down faster. Yes, you have no Nexus turrets, but the control ward is put down here in a perfect spot. You don't play around flashing into the base. Note Tarzan's flashes up. You don't play around ulting into the base. The mechanic that actually is used. But how many times are you looking for a double TP turret dive here? Like, they're not communicating the TPs are up. They're not thinking about that in the same way we are, knowing what happened. So I think running to Baron, getting control wards down and saying, well, at least we know where Tarzan is more if we do this. Let's draw Tarzan out into the open. I think that's a fine decision. So it's not something you can ignore, that there's double TP and you have a naked Nexus, but I think you lose Baron more times than you lose the game on this play. Again, in hindsight, there's no way to know. It's rose tinted on both sides. Visual bug at the start. Now you have no TPs on your side, so you can't actually reinforce with two members, which is what you would do in a normal case. But you have double control ward here to give you, basically, you will always know when someone is getting near to the Nexus with those two control wards. You can't go around all of the information here. SKT roll up to Baron. Chovy's on a recall. The call has clearly already come at this point. We're not contesting Baron. We're going for the TP. They got the instant double TP. Chovy's TP with the home guard buff, but none on the side of Griffin. And now you're in 1v2. Khan can just kill Tarzan easily, but no way to contest two people. Faker gets back, but only gets a front row seat. They got the Baron. They got the Baron recall. They go down. Definitely when it comes to kind of holes, this is the easiest one to poke holes in if you want to be contrarian, which is, should they have approached the base defense differently? And the answer is yes, but, or no, but. Because what if Tarzan's around the Baron? Either you're worried about the fight there, right? You're worried about losing a 5v5. You didn't have a real 5v5. Viper was in his weird scenario where he suicided to the front line, right? And your Locket Shield was the last team fight we really had, apart from the one where they were losing members on the top side. So you're not sure about the fight. You feel like Baron is more likely than the backdoor, especially with the control wards you put down. And the backdoor is more fanciful. If you can make it about Baron, you bring the enemy threats to your face. If you don't make it about Baron, then crazy stuff happens, and, which is what actually happens in this case. So they try to make it around Baron, and then Tarzan opens with ultimate, Again, could have opened with Flash, but Ultimate's pretty short cooldown, and of course it's really, really fancy. Puts down the TP ward, and you wonder when the thought was. You would guess already now. By this point, Tarzan's walking up and finds the bad news about the control ward, and set, because this they've already talked about doing a backdoor, right? Yorick's waiting in the base. That's how you know they're already talking about backdoor. It wasn't an adaptive backdoor, otherwise Yorick would have been moving. But watch Yorick in the base. Yorick isn't moving. So this, if Tarzan walks up and doesn't find a control ward, then he just judges the scenario, puts down his ward, and Yorick comes and tries to end the game with 2 people. Instead, they see the ward. He sees the ward, it's the double visual bug, is hilarious. And so, because of that, Yorick leaves the top side because they need to at least be thinking about a defense around Baron, or leaving the options open for him. But don't get this wrong. They are already thinking around a backdoor at this point. Backdoor has been called. Chovy starts to recall. He wants to have the... because someone wants to have home guard buff. Yorick needs to answer a super minion wave, so he has to leave base first. Aurelia goes back. The wards are already down. Full recall into the TP here, and then it ends up being unanswerable. There's nothing Khan can do to stop this, right? He can kill Tarzan. That's not going to do anything. They get the win here, so it's just good to slow it down, to see in the benefit of hindsight. A lot was done right by both teams. You didn't play around that specific outcome, but did you play around the most possible outcomes? I would argue yes. But you lost, so obviously it's so easy to try and poke a hole in that thought. But as it played out, Griffin's forethought to think about backdoor for a while, and for backdoor with an Evelyn, or just having Flash up to be so creative, makes it so the amount of bad decisions for SKT doesn't matter. It becomes about a proactive decision from Griffin, where they get over the wall, the double TP comes in, and they take it down. Someone's asking here, did Tarzan sell an item for pink, or do you have a slot for it? Let's find out. I don't know. We'll have to go back a while, so sorry about that. No, he had control ward slot, so that was already there. In this epic ending of the series. Unbelievable ending, by the way. Like, this is way more emotion than Griffin. So remember, Griffin, the team that always expected 2-0. You know, they always seem to respond as it was 2-0. Hens with a big smile on his face. Like, this was by far the best series ever played in Low Park, and one of the best of threes of all time. And we're going into the nitty-gritty to know what ifs. And did anyone make a big mistake, or throw away a lead, or, you know, make something that they shouldn't have done? Like, we're looking for where adjustments could have been made based on reality. That's why we're talking about what's possible, and then about how realistic that is. And I feel like the biggest mistake of this series was from Faker walking up to the brush around the inner turret and top lane in game number 2, and then the greed from Viper to pick up a kill that he only missed out on because of a super clutch shield coming in from Mata. But we can criticize Viper because they had already got Lucian out of the fight, and killing him dead isn't that much more than killing him as far as they had. So these are the two biggest mistakes we're seeing. Yes, Faker, you know, there was some, he died too many times on Lissandra, but those are kind of the game impacting mistakes, those two that we mentioned. But the nice thing is that everything else that happened in the overall 2-1 victory for Griffin was mostly made based on good plays, not on enemy misplays. And even those areas which are so up in the air, like how do you deal with a backdoor, who recalls where, like those things are so small that I think I stick with my original analysis of everyone holding their heads high. Like, I think both teams played incredibly well in this game, but Griffin at the end, you know, they pulled the trigger on something pretty special. And while it feels bad for SKT fans, the moment that they had that lane assignment where Zir didn't group, they didn't have a way to go, but knowing not to send Zir back and not just go with the first person who was recalling, it's just not a mistake. It's just a thing that happened. Like, Like, they lost this series but won so much respect in terms of their own fans, the enemy fans, in terms of, you know, the VOD reviews that can come out of this game by the team. I'm not talking about myself. Like, SKT, huge net positive from this series. They came in and people were more focused on, are they just going to get blasted a second time after getting utterly gutter stomped the first time? And the answer was far away no. And they almost won. They didn't get the points on the day, but that's where a tournament is different to a league. Like, they lost to best of 3, and maybe they don't get second place out of this, but they could just beat Sandbox and then have some small results go their way. And what this brings psychologically on a future best of 5 between SKT and Griffin is so big. Even if they didn't pick up the match victory or the extra +1 game score, they get so much from this, and the amount of nitty-gritty we need to get to. This VOD review of this series started, I believe, exactly 5 hours ago. We spent 5 hours VOD reviewing 3 games, with some pauses and stuff, but over 4 hours, just to come away with, what if XYZ divided by 5 and then times 10 happened? Like, that's where we're at. That is how much we're trying to break down this one, so... yeah, shout out to both teams. I'm happy that on review, when I'm being super tooth comb, rewinding and going forward and trying to just look for flaws, the flaws are very minimal in this series. And yes, different things, small things could have changed and the result would have been different. But I think the result being different meant something in terms of best of 3 victories and best of 3 losses, but meant nothing in terms of how good SK Telecom or Griffin are. Both of them are really good. I think SKT's plan in game number 1 was some of the most inspired drafting, but with a very deft touch, pardon the pun, that we've seen so far. So, yeah, really, really well played by both teams. So, that'll conclude the VOD review of SKT versus Griffin. I'm going to take a short bathroom break again. I'm going to come back with some LEC VOD reviews. We'll go into late night. We're going to have a long stream here, but I'm going to do what I promised. Papa doesn't let you down. I don't smoke, so I don't need to go get any smokes. I'm a little bit hungry, but I can work through that. Papa's going to come through. We're going to do some LEC VOD reviewing. I'll tweet about it. We'll take a small pause, and then let's learn about the LEC a little bit, guys. So taking a pause now and back very shortly.